My name is Lily Carter. I am 22 years old. I work as a cleaner in a small hotel in Ohio, and I live with my younger brother in a tiny apartment because our parents passed away 3 years ago, and I became the only adult in our family. I never finished college because I had to work. I wake up at 5 every morning. I cook a simple breakfast for my brother Ben. I pack his school lunch. And then I take the bus to the hotel where I clean rooms all day, with tired hands, but a hopeful heart. I always believed that hard work brings a good future. I saved every dollar in a small box under my bed. I wanted Ben to study at a good school. I wanted him to have a life better than mine. And this dream was the reason I kept smiling, even when my body hurt. Last Monday, my life changed in one terrible moment. I was standing inside room 214, holding a rich guest's expensive watch in my hand, while the hotel manager was shouting my name and 2 police officers were walking toward me. My hands were shaking so much that the watch almost fell. The manager's face was red with anger, and the guest was pointing at me saying, "I stole it," even though I kept repeating that I only found it under the bed while cleaning. I knew immediately that this was my mistake, a very costly mistake, because I broke the hotel rule when I picked the watch up instead of calling the supervisor first. And in that second, I understood how a small decision can destroy years of honest life. Before this happened, the day started normal. I woke up early, then complained about math homework. I laughed and told him he was smarter than me, and I promised him I would bring home his favorite noodles after work. On the bus, I counted the money in my bag. I had finally saved enough for Ben's school trip fee, and I felt proud because he would not feel poor in front of his classmates anymore. At work, my coworker Sarah told me room 214 belonged to a businessman from Chicago. She said rich guests always complain, so I should be extra careful and never touch their things even if they look lost. I nodded and promised her. I truly meant it. I always followed rules because I could not afford problems. Losing this job would mean losing our home and my brother's safety. Inside the room, everything looked normal. Big bed, an open suitcase, expensive shoes on the floor, and a strong smell of perfume. I started cleaning slowly and carefully, like always. Then I bent down to wipe under the bed and saw a gold watch shining near the wall. It looked very expensive and heavy, and I thought the guest would panic if he noticed it missing. My heart told me to call the supervisor, but my mind said it would be faster if I placed it on the table where he could see it. I wanted to be helpful and kind, because I believed good actions bring good results. So I picked it up and walked to the desk, but before I could put it down, the door opened suddenly, and the guest entered with the manager behind him, both staring directly at my hand. The guest shouted immediately that I was stealing. He did not ask, he did not listen, and the manager's face changed from surprise to anger in seconds. I tried to explain calmly. I said I found it under the bed. I said I wanted to help. I said they could check the cameras, but my voice sounded weak as scared, because I knew how this looked. The manager told me to stay still. He called security, and the guest kept repeating that poor workers cannot be trusted. Those words hurt more than the fear in my chest. While waiting for security, I kept thinking about Ben at school, about the noodles I promised, and about the money box under my bed that suddenly felt useless if I lost everything today. Security came. Then police officers arrived, and everyone looked at me like I was already guilty. Even Sarah stood far away with worried eyes, because she knew rules were strict. I was not arrested yet, but they said they must investigate, and the manager told me to go to his office. My legs felt heavy, but I walked, because I had no choice. Inside the office, I repeated my story again, slowly and clearly. I told them every step, every second, and I did not hide my mistake, because I knew honesty was my only protection now. The officer listened quietly and wrote notes. He said touching the watch broke procedure, and even if I meant well, it created suspicion. Those words confirmed what I already feared. I realized then that my kindness without thinking was dangerous. I should have followed the rule. I should have called first. And this simple decision might cost me my job and my brother's future. As I sat in the chair, waiting for their decision, I kept staring at my hands. The same hands that worked every day to protect my family were now the reason our life could fall apart. I did not know yet that this mistake would push me into a situation far worse than losing a job, and that the person who would judge me the most was someone I trusted deeply. After one long hour, the police officer closed his notebook slowly. He said they could not arrest me because there was no proof I wanted to steal. But the hotel had the right to fire me for breaking procedure and causing a serious complaint. The manager looked tired and disappointed. He said the hotel's reputation was more important than my explanation. And he handed me a paper that ended my job in a single moment. My chest felt empty, not heavy, just empty. Because sometimes shock is quieter than pain. I thanked him politely, even though my voice trembled, and I knew my life outside that office would be different forever. I walked outside carrying my small bag with cleaning gloves and lunchbox. And the hallway where I worked every day suddenly felt like a place that never belonged to me. Sarah tried to speak, but stopped. She hugged me quickly and whispered she believed me. But belief does not pay rent, and kindness does not change decisions. On the bus ride home, I kept thinking about Ben. I had to tell him we were in trouble, and I practiced calm sentences in my mind so he would not panic. When I opened the apartment door, he ran to me smiling and asked about noodles. His innocent question broke my heart gently, and I hugged him longer than usual before I answered. I told him the truth slowly. I said I lost my job because I touched something I should not touch. And I promised him we would still be okay, even though I was not sure how. He looked worried but brave. He said he could skip the school trip and help me find work. And in that moment, I felt both proud and ashamed, because a child should not carry adult fear. That night, I counted my savings. We had enough for 1 month only. So next morning, I went outside early searching for any job, restaurant, store, anything that needed hands. Hours passed. Many places said they were not hiring. Some asked about my last job, and my voice became weaker each time I explained, because saying I was fired made doors close faster. In the afternoon, my phone rang. The number was unknown, and a calm male voice introduced himself as Mr. Howard, the businessman from the hotel room. My stomach tightened, but I listened. He said he wanted to meet because he had something important to discuss about the incident, and he promised it could help me. I hesitated but agreed, because I had no power to refuse opportunity. We met in a quiet coffee shop near the hotel. He wore a clean suit and a polite smile, very different from his angry face before. He said he believed I did not steal the watch. He checked the security footage privately and saw me bending under the bed before touching it, so he knew my story was true. Relief washed over me for a moment, but then confusion followed because he already caused my firing, and I asked why he did not say this earlier. He said business decisions move fast, and he reacted emotionally. But now he wanted to compensate me by offering a small job, organizing files in his office for good pay. He said it was simple work and he preferred someone trustworthy rather than experienced. The offer sounded like rescue, easy work, better money, an immediate start. And my mind thought about rent, food, and Ben's future. I felt shy because he spoke gently and looked at me with unusual softness. Not like a rich man talking to a worker, but like someone trying to fix a mistake from the heart. I accepted because I needed the job, yet I also felt he was trying to take responsibility for hurting me, and that made me less afraid. The next day, I went to his office building downtown. It was modern and quiet, and he showed me a small room filled with folders and a computer where I would arrange client information. The work was simple, and I felt thankful. I believed life was correcting itself after punishing me. And I told Ben we would be fine again. Days passed calmly. I organized papers, entered names into the system, and Mr. Howard treated me politely, often bringing coffee and asking if I was tired. Sometimes he stood near the door watching quietly before speaking, like he wanted to say something but changed his mind. And his behavior felt careful and thoughtful. One afternoon he thanked me for working hard, and said meeting me changed his opinion about people. He said not all honesty comes from education or money. I did not know how to respond, so I only smiled. But I noticed his voice became softer when he talked to me, compared to others in the office. As I locked the office that evening, I realized my mistake at the hotel strangely connected our lives, and I felt that Mr. Howard no longer saw me as just a worker. He was beginning to care about me. Weeks passed, and my life slowly became calmer. I worked every day in the quiet office, while Ben returned to smiling again. And the fear that lived inside me, after losing the hotel, started fading little by little. Mr. Howard was 30 years old, tall and handsome, with gentle eyes, and although he was a serious businessman, with many responsibilities, he always spoke to me softly like my feelings mattered. Sometimes he brought lunch for both of us, saying he ordered too much by accident, but I understood he did it so I would not skip meals to save money. One rainy afternoon, the electricity went off for a few minutes. The office became dark and silent, and we stood near the window, watching the street, filled with water and yellow lights from cars. He said the rain made him remember being young and poor, working small jobs before his company succeeded. And his voice sounded honest, not proud. I told him I never hated being poor. I only feared failing my brother. And he looked at me longer than usual, as if my words touched something deep inside him. After that day, our conversations became warmer, not only about work, but about life, dreams. In the strange way, our meeting began with a mistake and turned into trust. One evening, he insisted on driving me home because it was late. The car was quiet and comfortable, and soft music played while city lights moved across the windows. When we reached my building, he did not open the door immediately. He held the steering wheel tightly and said meeting me changed his daily life more than any business success. My heart beat fast, and I could not look at him. Yet I felt the same change inside me, a feeling that scared and comforted me at the same time. Days later, he invited me to dinner at a small restaurant, not luxurious but warm, and he seemed nervous, which surprised me, because confident people rarely look unsure. During dinner, he laughed for the first time freely, not like a boss but like a young man resting after long pressure. And I realized I enjoyed hearing his voice more than I should. When we walked outside, the night air was cool. He suddenly held my hand gently, and I did not pull away, even though my mind warned me this path was dangerous. He stopped under a streetlight, his hand trembling slightly in mine, and he said quietly that he tried to stay distant, but every day he thought about me more than work, more than sleep, and he could not hide it anymore. I felt tears in my eyes, and I told him I waited every morning just to hear his voice in the office, that my day felt safe only when he was near, and I was tired of pretending it was only gratitude. He whispered that he loved me, the words soft but clear, and the world around us became silent, like the night was listening. I answered that I loved him too, even though I knew loving him would bring pain. And for a moment, we simply stood close, breathing the same cold air, while our fears rested. Then his face changed, serious and conflicted, and he said there was something I must know before our feelings moved further. He told me he was already married. The words fell slowly and painfully. His marriage was cold and distant for years, but still legal and real. My hand slipped from his, my mind became empty, and the warm night suddenly felt cold because I knew my heart already stepped into forbidden space. He said he planned to separate, but business and family pressure delayed everything, and meeting me made him finally want a different life. Tears filled my eyes, because I loved him, yet hated the situation. I asked why life offered comfort wrapped in pain, and he had no simple answer. Days passed with heavy silence between us, until he asked to talk privately after work. His voice serious, like someone standing before a cliff. In the office, he said he wanted to leave the city, start a new branch in another state, and he wanted me to come with him and marry him quietly after the arranged legal separation. My heart trembled because I needed him. His support protected my brother and my future. But the idea of a secret marriage confused my morals and my fear of hurting another woman. He held my hands gently and promised stability, safety, and a life where I would never struggle again. And his eyes showed real love, not manipulation. I cried and said I did not want to destroy anyone's life, even if I loved him. And he answered that his marriage already ended emotionally long ago. That night, I sat beside Ben, while he slept, thinking about love, survival, and the cost of decisions. Realizing my first mistake, lost a job, but this choice could change many lives forever. Morning came, and I still had no answer. I loved him and needed him, yet my heart stood between right and wrong. And sometimes I wonder, if you were in my place, what would you choose for your life?